The story begins by talking about the past in a vast field with little sheep. When, suddenly, the sky starts to crack, the poor shepherdess already has her eyes wide open. Phi and another huge eye appear staring at her. It was that day the Demon King's invasion began. And countless creatures appeared. Guess who shows up along with the Demon Kings? My God. Oh no. Okay. I thought they were the Awakened ones, but this time, they're the divine knights who serve God. And things here are very devout. They make a vow to God, and, through this oath, gain supernatural powers, and push the monsters out of the land. However, the demonic miasma, which is a substance from the demon realm, remained in high concentration in several areas. Most of the places where it existed were corrupted and died. In an abandoned city, you can see a gigantic plant, feeding on a fallen body there. Son, get out of here. Wow, it's a woman upside down. And the story says those who survived really became demons. But someone comes by and gives a little cut. The rest of the plant falls to the ground like trash. The vice commander of the Divine Knights, Quirandes, says they arrived too late. Oh, even the name of Signbird's weapon. And if someone calls for the vice commander and says the red moon appeared. Whoa, man, the last time I saw a red moon in history, things didn't end well. Suddenly, they hear a knock, and the guy says it's coming from the building ahead. They were supposed to be careful when this moon is in the sky. Anything can happen. Quirandes approaches the area, and inside, he sees a human son, a little bald kid with eyes. Farther apart than anything, apparently. He's our little protege. Since we fast-forwarded 15 years after he was found. And in the orphanage's cafe, someone said it's thanks to the Divine Knights that they can eat. They should be grateful. However, someone called out to the guy in front. It's like who wants to know why his portion is so small like that. The guy doesn't look happy hearing that, and he turns around to say it's nothing serious. He watches everyone in the cafeteria while remembering that his village was attacked by demons when he was younger. He was the only survivor, and he was brought to this place to be raised by the knights. Everyone finds it strange that a baby alone survived. Besides, they say that birthmark on his face is proof that he is a child of the monsters. In other words, right, kid? At that moment, someone throws a bunch of old fish and food into his pot, saying that what's there probably isn't enough for the creature. Everyone in that place suspected he wasn't human, and since everyone there also lost their family to demons, obviously he wasn't loved for that. The guy who threw the food calls a kid nearby, crying, and Lyca knows this kid just arrived yesterday. The big guy crouches down and says that this kid's father was eaten by the monster disguised as a human, exactly the same race as Lyca, and he wants him to apologize. While the protagonist is there looking kind of confused, not understanding, but the little devil kid is already telling him to give back his mother, that he's a ridiculous monster, and then the guy slams his head on the ground, saying that if they asked him to apologize, he better obey. With that, poor guy, he apologizes, right? What can you do, white-haired kid? I thought he was going to form a really cool aura, but apparently, he's still got to level up by hitting the ground clean. He said his routine has been the same for over a decade. Basically, you can't leave this place until you become an adult. Also, when you turn 15, you can be sent by the priests to become a divine knight. Basically, right? You have to pass the tests. And, just barely, there are 5 days left for that to happen. He couldn't take it anymore. He's stuck in that damn orphanage and can't wait to get out. It would be so much better if he could really become a divine knight like that, then. He moves forward to a statue, and someone says the ceremony is about to start. Anyone who had turned 15 and wished to become a knight just had to step forward and take the oath. The shaved-head guy, next to Lyca, already says that a monster like him will never become a divine knight. Then the priest asks them, one by one again, to step forward and take the oath with his chalice. Those whose liquid turns blue cannot be knights, and those whose liquid turns gold are the ones who can drink it. Then they receive the vow and the power for the oath to work. They had to offer what was most important to this god. Besides, this ceremony can only be done once in a lifetime, so it's best they be cautious about what they offer. The shaved-head guy is first, and he swears he will never run from any monster again. His younger sister was eaten by a creature right in front of him, and now he swears that no matter how dangerous they are, he will kill every single one of them. The chalice starts glowing throughout the room, and suddenly the liquid turns gold. The guy says a noble truly appeared, and now he could never run from the creatures again. He grabs the cup the priest gives the blessing, and the room shines instantly. The guy feels a strange power flowing through his body. Everyone there's impressed, man. The second one steps forward saying he swears to become a wanderer. with no family when he leaves this place. That's because family was the most important thing to him, apparently. It worked too. Another one goes up, takes the oath, and it works as well. The girl steps forward. He takes the oath, and it works. Laika was also sure he would succeed. But obviously, right? When it works for everyone, it has to go wrong for you, unfortunately. Protinia, the guy tells him to take a step forward. He goes forward anxiously, and at that moment, he says he swears he will become a knight to protect people. However, he stops there, kind of unsure what to say because he couldn't think of anything he could offer. He wants to leave this place and be happy. But he had absolutely nothing to give. The challenged one mentally forgot that you can think before stepping forward, right? A genius. But he's there shouting to himself that there must be something important inside him that he can offer. Suddenly, a strange energy starts emerging in his body, and he gets kind of confused at that moment. The liquid in the chalice on the stage begins to turn into a weird purple goo. The priest immediately says he's never seen such a scary color and instantly announces the ceremony is over. Everyone was supposed to leave. Laika is about to say something, but asking them to wait when suddenly a crazy arm gets cut off. Flying away, man. Oh my God. The guys behind say that. As everyone expected, he really was a monster after all. What's this? The awakened ones are already armed with spears. Hug me, man. I want to awaken too. They warn they're going to kill him now, saying that this damn guy disguised as a human won't leave alive today. But at that moment, the priest orders them to stand still, because this power can't be used against humans. At the same second, the ceiling starts cracking and a huge punch comes from above, vaporizing the guy. When they look up, man, there's a demon there with a mark on his forehead, staring down at everyone. The crowd screams in panic. And apparently it's not part of the plan, because the priest is scared too. The creature launches the classic Titan attack, grabs him by the foot, and bites down. The priest orders everyone to evacuate and calls the Divine Knights. But at that moment, he wants to be caught while the beast runs over there. The Lakata there, missing half his body, looked a bit scared but calm. For someone who lost an arm, he's doing all right, huh? Chill. What's scarier for him is that demon right in front. And the shaved head guy is telling Laika to get out of the way because he's going to run. But strangely, he starts staring down the beast and just stands there. Then he remembers that during the oath he said he would never run from the creatures again. At that moment, the monster comes from behind while he cries in despair, and he's killed too. Another one to be devoured while the kids get motivated, activating their aura, saying they have to defend this place. Man, they charge forward, all like Dragon Ball Z characters. Meanwhile, Laika watches, and is sure that at this rate, he's going to be devoured too. But what could he even do against a creature like that? He didn't even get any power at that moment. The monster, which now that I look, seems to have thumbs for breasts. Man, it looks at him with its long tongue and launches an attack with the tongue in its mouth. Laika faces it and wonders if he's really going to die. In such a senseless place, though. That's when he remembers the chalice behind him, which supposedly changed color. It should give some power. The attack was coming, and he decides whatever. At that moment, it was better to take that disgusting thing than die there. The second he drinks the liquid, he faints. He hits his head, and the tongue is wrapping around his body. Damn, man, I thought he was going to go insane, but the kid really got stomped. But it wasn't going to be cheap. An explosion happens under the tongue that's burned, and the kid woke up super sad. That changed everything completely. Long black hair. Now where's my little Kilo? He's staring at his hand, not understanding what happened, wondering if that's really him. At that moment, he felt a strange sensation. His body was cold. A strange energy ran through his veins, and his monster stared back at him. It launched an attack, but he managed to dodge and stood face to face. He charged, running at the arm, reached the handle, grabbed it, and fixed it in place. Threw it toward the tongue and activated an explosion magic, creating a circle. More than that, purple lightning was coming out. What is this, dude? The boy has already evolved. Super Saiyan 16 is flying there, staring, forming an aura. He went to the ground and transformed back. He's there, exhausted from the power he used, while the guy behind him thinks this is impossible. They must be messing with him, softy, but he notices his arm, which had been torn and eaten, is back to normal. But what was it that just happened? The word purification echoes through the room, a gigantic sword. The size of the building appears, falling right into the monster's chest. Someone steps on the sword and says they can't leave this body there. Otherwise, miasma will spread across the city. The person apologizes for being late, wants to know if it was the boy who defeated the monster. Laika immediately recognizes him as one of the Divine Knights. Apparently, he arrived destroying everything, because now the sky is blue. And he says the boy is pretty impressive. Killing something awakened like that isn't common. This one is the commander of the Divine Knights, Arthur. But man, that Arthur has a really slim waist and wide hips, huh? Is Laika the tough one here? But he's impressed with the huge sword he has. He had never seen anything like that in his life at that moment. Someone calls for Commander Arthur and tells him to stop, leaving them behind. Captain Whitehips says everyone is way too slow. The rookie, however, is impressed that the commander is right in front of him. He knew that if that person recognized him, he could leave the orphanage. Oh no, with that little earring looking to the side. He's really cute. There's no way the artist is going to do this. Suddenly, Laika runs up to her, calls out to the Divine Knight, and says that becoming part of him has always been his dream. He has admired them forever and asked to join. However, the diaper stainer's right there beside him begging to please kill that monster. Arthur tells him to be very careful about what he says about his friends. However, the guy says that this kid is the only survivor of that village. Besides, he saw him transform without any oath and use a strange power. There's no way he's human. Monica tries to explain, but man oh man. She goes and slaps the face of the fool who spins away. And the fierce one even says that he was just saved by the kid. Still saying that? He really was ungrateful. The fool got all red and sticky, begging for forgiveness. While the protagonist is kind of surprised now. She turns to our boy and wants to know what's up, with him not having made any oath. Laika said that just as he was about to say his words, the demon appeared, but he gained the power to fight and drank the contents of his sacred chalice, which had also changed. So, he has the power. However, she replies that without an oath, it's impossible to obtain the power. So what was taken from him? Or why did the power awaken? Laika stumbles over his words until she says that he caught her interest. She wants to see if the power he has. He's kind of confused, but she just tells him to activate it, unleash what he has, because she wants to see it with her own eyes. The problem is that he has no idea how to activate that power. Kind of, right? He went alone at the moment he drank the chalice. Arthur crosses his arms and says this can be solved quickly. He grabs the boy by the subcaliph and takes him up. Team Rocket, the one out of the stratosphere down there. She screams that now he just has to activate the power or else he'll fall and die. Meanwhile, the friend says she's a demon. He activates it, falling while saying something wonderful, right? What's up with this woman, guys? He's crossing the clouds, saying that if it doesn't activate, he's screwed. Even worse, in the middle of the skies. What seemed like a demon gives him a stare, and he's kind of confused. Down below, Arthur calmly says he forgot that this was bird territory. Sky Eaters. The guy says it's not the time for her to calm down, especially since the kid is definitely going to be eaten. However, before she can say anything, the beast already bit him, and the two stand there realizing they messed up. Immediately, the guy starts flying, saying he has to help Helly. Man, in this story, the guys are really like Dragon Ball Z. She said it was unexpected, but maybe this was the perfect chance to restore the boy's power. The friend replies that she really was a demon. Exactly. Meanwhile, in the skies, Laika is inside a life's belly, realizing he's being corroded. Around him, there were only the remains of the victims. He knows that in a few more hours there, he'll die. And it was still that easy, man. Because there's a beast coming from behind to give him a big bite. He's definitely going to die in the next second, that's for sure. However, he remembers that shaved head telling him to die. That only makes him more irritated, thinking he's there because of that damn kid from the orphanage who said something. To her, really. Those kids and the Divine Knights were the worst. However, there's no way he's going to accept dying in a place like this all of a sudden. He transforms once again, while the beast's belly is attacking him from all sides. Down below, the blue-haired one. Down there, the blue hair. He's asking her why she's being so careless. She, however, says she wants to know if the power to defeat an unclassified demon alone will be a benefit for them. Suddenly, in the sky, the creature's belly starts to swell. An X appears on its chest, sprouting, scraping against it. At first, at the top of the belly, and it begins to fly. Just as it's about to fall to the ground, it stretches out its hand and creates an air impact, softening the fall. The blue-haired commander comes to help, asking if he's okay, and comments that he looks kind of unharmed. Arthur, however, in the background, says it's strange that he killed that creature. He should be at the level of a vice commander, man, and says that 15 years ago, a baby was found in an abandoned house there. And apparently, he's grown quite a lot, hasn't he, Kieran? Oh, right, that's the guy who saved the little plate at the beginning. Guys, oh, that's so cool. I've never seen that happen, right? Saved and found after 15 years. He, however, says he doesn't know anything about that. Besides, for that kid, maybe it would have been better to die back then. At this moment, however, Arthur calls the fool beside him and warns that she's going to take this child, because they need to keep this strange power under their watch. Also, she said she's going to give a hint. In the situation they're currently in, there's no such thing as caring about a person's identity. Humans needed all the help they could get, because they had very little time left. Scene changes to the carriages. Suddenly, the selfie turns into something kind of Greek, and our little protagonist is sleeping there. I imagine it was a pretty cozy lap. What's this big-headed boy on the thigh? He makes the worst decision and throws himself to the side, fleeing in fear of the woman. It's true that this woman threw him into the sky, so running away really is the better choice. He asks where he is and then realizes he was in some kind of flying carriage. Arthur explains that they are out of time and had to leave. Before he wakes up, it's a shame that he couldn't say goodbye to anyone in that place, huh? He laughs, saying it's funny that she says that, but at that moment it kind of hits him. And he asks if she is part of the Knight's Order. She says yes. From today on, he is under the care of the Knights. He's kind of confused, right? What's this business about being under their care? She explains that the boy's existence is an irregularity, even for them. They still don't know if he's someone they can trust. And that will be decided based on what he does. He says he understands. But he wants to know what happened to the orphanage. What they explain is that the important parts of the building were destroyed. So it was decided that it will be officially shut down. All the children and staff, they will be split up and sent to other orphanages. Arthur also said that the saddest part is that most of the children were close to making their vows. And she wants to know if there's anyone who cares about him, misses him. However, he only remembers the humiliation they suffered and says there is absolutely no one. But the most important thing is that he wants to know, right? Where they're going. She explains that he is going to the barracks in the holy capital city of Alha, a place where countless knights and other cadets like him gather. They were preparing to defend that place, especially since the great calamity of the mythical age could happen again at any moment. He doesn't understand what she's talking about, and she just tells him to take a look out the window. Outside, you can see the skies beginning to crack open, and then the story tells about that rupture that appeared in her sky. It rained. Countless monsters and otherworldly beings, led by the Demon King and the King of another world. They sought to become gods of this world. The Demon King and his celestial demons managed to conquer and destroy part of this place, corrupting it with demonic essence. But in the end, the Order of Divine Warriors succeeded in driving them out of this place. The demons were surrounded and sealed at the edges of the continent. That's why there's a habitable area for humans. The problem is the population keeps shrinking, and obviously it's getting harder and harder to defend. She's not sure why these rifts have started appearing again. The only thing they know is that something even greater than before is about to happen, and the only ones who can do anything about it are them, the Order of Knights. He's standing there kind of confused when she comes over, putting her hand somewhere inappropriate. Man, sticking it on his face and saying she places a lot of hope in his power. The poor guy is all red, and I recognize her potential just by how wide the artist drew her, man. The poor guy is right there, right? And Arthur, come on, girl. While she gets closer and closer, saying she saw a strange light in his eye when he was transformed, that explosion he made spinning with his sword, and the regeneration of his arm that he said was cut off. She had found a power that's making her really interested. She doesn't know what he offered in the oath, but she wants him to use it with them in this fight. Man, she licked the sweat that dripped from his chin. My God. This girl is a freak, and the poor guy said it's okay, right? He helps. What else can you do, for God's sake? But she already gave him a little kick too, saying this is his problem. She has a job for him now. I thought he was going to fall like an idiot. But talk about the boy, the kid who grabbed the trunk and managed to land on his feet, calm and collected. At that moment, he notices his body wasn't hurt, and strangely seemed much stronger. From above, she shouts. Up there, she screams, saying that those who form the pact gain two types of powers. There are special truths, like the sword and physical abilities, that drastically surpass those of a human. And now he has to understand that the Order of Knights isn't just out there killing creatures, they also have to clean up the trash. And that's his first job. When he finishes, he can go to the city. And he better be careful not to go the wrong way. The rookie is completely confused, wondering what this trash cleaning business is about, when he hears footsteps nearby, and someone says it was a close call with this order. One of them asks if the Order of Knights and the carriage have already left. The guy with the goatee in front wants to know who this kid is. They heard a loud noise and want to know if it was him. The only problem is he has no idea who these guys are, or why they're just lying there in the middle of the forest. The guy, however, asks if he's an abandoned child or someone who lost his family to monsters. Another voice just replies that it doesn't matter. They're going to capture and sell. They just want to make some money, whatever it takes. Right then, Leica realizes these guys are bandits, and maybe the so-called cleaning involves getting rid of them. Looking to the side, he sees the guy carrying 3 little kids there, and the dude tells him to come along quickly before he gets hurt. Although, once he's sold, he can't guarantee anything. The only one who sees the kid remembers going through a similar situation, my big guy. So he tells the child to stay quiet and come quickly, while the rookie, on the other hand, already tells him to release the kids, or he's going to get torn apart. Man, the boy is already forming that serious Lorena vibe, saying the first job the commander gave him is to get rid of them. The guy then says he doesn't care who this kid is. He's in their territory, so screw him. They're going to take down this kid now. Everyone moves in. Sparks flying everywhere. And before they realize it, the kid has vanished. In a split second, from one place to another, he went over to the kids to give them that little aura boost. And man, everyone's already shaking. Dude, the boys are kind of confused. A musclehead shoots an arrow. Damn, bro, what a waste of muscles. But in a second, the protagonist becomes a shadow. And he wonders where he went, looks to the side. There he is. Now he looks just like the moon to the kid. Check that out. It's against you, right? Another useless arrow shot. Here comes the little pro, even less effective. He throws a grand chase flame blast. Man, oh man. Creating a wall of fire in front of everyone. And in the middle of the flames, he walks with that long hair. Honestly, I think it would have been cooler if he had white hair. Would have been better. But he makes that face. And man, before the guys can respond, he's already slicing through everyone. Photoshop level moves all around. What the heck, girl? The fight lasted 1 panel. Everyone's bodies are already on the ground burning. Monica, however, felt something was off. At this moment, someone tells him not to move, and when he looks back, the guy has a knife at one of the kids' necks, saying that if he takes a step forward, this one will be killed. The silver-haired guy is staring somewhat disinterested. Realizing there's really one left, they fall silent for a second. Blood starts dripping from the kid's face. The silver-haired guy then deactivates his sword and says he understands. He puts on a full dramatic act and tells him he won't come closer. So just let these kids get away. The guy, however, says no way. These kids were highly valuable merchandise. Besides, who the hell was he? These kids had already lost their families to demons. It was better if they were bought by someone than to become monster food. Even if it was some creepy old guy, at least these kids would be okay. At that moment, something passes by, and his arm is cut by a flame. And the little pro's dramatic act was pretty smart, right? He cut off the arm that was holding the knife. And he even tells the guy, like, I warned you not to get close, man, jeez. It wasn't just the arm. The head took a hit too. That's true, right? Better to kill right away than to just cut off an arm with a knife. I hadn't thought about it that way. The protagonist is impressed. He thought for a second about spreading that strange flame across the ground. And it was possible. He didn't imagine it was something so powerful. Then he asked if the kid is okay because he's trembling all over. And he knows that's kind of expected. The kid is scared. The kid, however, gathers courage and hugs his leg. Our guy pets him and says it was scary for a second. This kid is scared of Arthur getting close. He's generating 10,000 lei per second and, in that, transforms back. Exhausted, he falls to the ground among the kids. Meanwhile, arriving at the castle, the big guy is angry, wanting to know what's going on today. It's the little kids bringing silver. What else did you expect? The kid says he was the one who gave the orders. The one who didn't approach was what that bastard did. Something like that. He throws him over his shoulder. He says it's shameful to cause trouble for the people he was supposed to have saved. Strangely, the same guy is drooling there, sleeping soundly. Meanwhile, the guy says it's a disgrace, but now he wants to know what they're going to do. Up above, there's a group watching. Man, welcome to Fran. Another close friend arrives, saying his sleeping face is adorable. The one called Kenneth says her heart is too soft for him. This kid receives an X, the bomber named Grift. He says it's shameful to be so exhausted from just a simple cleaning job, while Jack says he's disappointed by everything they said about the kid. In the background, Arthur, looking beautiful, sits on the throne. He says they're evaluating the kid who just awakened. Man, they're being way too harsh on him. They'll keep watching, and that's what's decided. But obviously, they expect him to evolve way beyond this. Next time, you don't move to another part of the castle. Fruit on the table and a feast served for our guy, who's drooling, all shiny. Not believing that all this is really for him, he starts eating everything, and then some. When someone even offers him a little cup, oh man. There are even some fierce maids, dude. He apologizes for causing trouble. And she says he doesn't need to worry. He can take as long as he wants and eat as much as he wants. Monica realizes that, in this place different from the orphanage, he could eat in peace. Without anyone bothering him, really. It was totally worth joining the Knight's Order. But at that moment, someone calls him. From the back, the kid asks if he's Leica. The silver-haired guy turns around a bit awkwardly and says yes. And if the guy comes face to face with him, he stares him down, leaving him. A bit confused, he turns around saying he really has the face of an idiot and tells me to follow him, saying they're going to find out now if he's a useful idiot or a useless idiot. Oh, Leica, this is all so confusing. What's with this guy showing up out of nowhere saying stuff like that? But the guy introduces himself as Kenneth. He's that one, right? The second in command. The silver-haired guy is a bit scared, but the dude just tells him to shut up and come quickly. And then he asks the girl next to him, how long is she going to stay dressed like that? Now it makes sense why there were so many fierce ones, right? Actually, it's Fran dressed as a maid. Apparently, she's the cosplayer girl. The scene then shifts to another place, in a forest, where he's walking with the two. He's really scared. But she tells him not to worry. They actually have a lot to do. However, the ultimate goal is for everyone to return safely, without any injuries. He said he understood. Meanwhile, the guy kind of can't believe it's the same person as before. This girl really was important. Kenneth said they're arriving, and she explained she's going to tell the story one more time. It seems that outside the royal capital today, some monsters were spotted. To prevent any damage, the army decided to act quickly, and they have already been dispatched. Even without many certainties, it's obvious they're mainly there to find out what Link is capable of, especially since he's now joining the Order. They need to test his power. That's because the commander of everything was debating what exactly to do with the boy, so he might see this as some kind of evaluation. Leica isn't very excited about this, because now it means he could actually still lose his position among the knights. However, the insecurity fades immediately when the tall one comes over, giving him a gentle pat, saying she has high hopes for him. She heard from the commander that he has good skills. At that moment, his expression changes and he smiles, saying he can count on her. It's going to be easy. He wants to know right away who the enemies are, which monsters he's going to wipe out completely. Kenneth replies that he's pretty confident. For someone who saved some kids and had to be carried by them. And he better remember that if they decide he's useless, he will indeed be kicked out of the Knight's Order. And judging by the idiot face he's making, that's the most likely thing to happen. Leica tells the bastard to stop bothering him. Want to know why he keeps acting tough like that? Besides, they probably aren't that different in age. So why does he think he's superior? Man, this Kenneth is done for. If he's the same age as our little protege. And Fran is giving a gentle pat, telling them to stop fighting. Fran apologizes publicly and explains that Kenneth made a vow to be brutally honest. This makes the little protege even angrier because now he knows deep down. This guy really thinks he's an idiot. The guy said yes, and he wants to know what's up with him not having taken any vows. The only one says it doesn't matter, but the guy says it's weird, because the power they receive comes from the vow they make. The greater the sacrifice, the greater the power. Well, it has to be honest. It doesn't even seem like a sacrifice. There's so much stuff. This is easy. These guys. In Hunter x Hunter, it was heavier. Man, the protagonist is going to say he already knows that. When suddenly, man, out of nowhere, there's a weapon behind his head. And Kenneth says that in 6 months, usually a third of the recruits die, or are destroyed by the O's they make. Leica, however, is more interested in understanding how this guy appeared behind him out of nowhere. And the guy is staring at him, wanting to know what his deal is. Joining the Order without sacrificing anything. He's about to pull the trigger. Leica hesitates. When suddenly, Fran grabs his arm and tells Kenneth that it was more than enough. Suddenly, Leica's aura starts to activate. And he says he really didn't make that vow, but the commander accepted him. and there's no way he's going back to that old orphanage. So, whatever it takes to join the Knight's Order. He's going all out. Kenneth is scared, you see. The boy grabbed his pistol, which disappeared. He doesn't understand how something destroyed his divine art. And then he prepares another pistol, man, until Fran tells the two of them to stop it. She really liked that energy and motivation, but from now on. Damn, girl, the fierce one is about to activate hers. Oh no, she warns that, you know. There are tons of monsters staring at us, and it's time to work. Now that I look, the girl pulled out a harpoon, man, and the suits are staring. At the moment, the first move is to attack. The three dodge. The creature, however, hit with a poisonous tail, man. It left a liquid on the tree that corrodes everything. It was a suit with a really weird snake tail. And Leica wants to know why the stuff there melted. Kenneth just tells him not to touch the tail, because it's obviously something deadly. And right then, 5 more attack Leica. He dodges an attack, then comes out saying those creatures are cheating. Meanwhile, Fran smiles and waves goodbye, saying the two of them will settle this now. He's a bit confused, wondering if she really isn't going to help. But the girl is already leaving, casually killing a few along the way, saying she knows there must be someone controlling all of this. And she's going to look for them, rushing off while the protagonist calls out. Until Leica pulls out 2 more big pistols, whoa, again aiming at our guy's head. But actually, he shoots the monkey behind him, warning that if he intends to be in the Knight's Order. Panicking like that, it's better to give up now. Then another jumps on Leica's back to attack, but the brave one draws his sword and slashes him. The guy says there's no way he'd join that order. And to prove his potential, Kenneth just says his words are empty. If he wanted to prove something, it should be with actions. Then each goes their own way, Kennedy in the fight, hitting several monkeys. While our little protagonist advances with his sword, jumps at the first one and slashes. Already leaving about 4 on the ground, a great fight in the middle. But while he killed those, the kid notices that Kennedy was evaporating everything around him, damn. Then the artist got excited, making a pile of dead monkeys around the guy. And the little protagonist only realizes it's no wonder that bastard was the vice commander. That sword he was using, even if good, couldn't compare to the destructive power of that. But 2 monkeys advance. He activates the sword, but this time sends out a strange flame, coming from the sword and seeming to float through the air. At the same time, he remembers that the bigger the flame, the more his energy drains, and at this rate, he's going to faint, just like Chloro did with the kids. Meanwhile, what, right? Fifi is farming a bug monster spot, warning that if the kid is going to stay there, killing so little, it's easier to just sit in the shade. The protagonist can't understand how the bastard doesn't stop for a second, and he's not even breathing hard. Really, the distance between them was huge, so he honestly asks, right? How the hell does the bastard keep shooting? Doesn't he run out of ammo? Because the guy explains it's a divine weapon, and the pistols use mana bullets. For a second, Silver thinks it's funny that he's telling everything. But then he remembers what Fran said. He can't lie about anything. At the same time, he also notices that the guy's divine art works differently from his. While the dude is using mana to create a bullet, he has this continuous flow that's kind of coming out of his body. The problem is, even knowing that, it's not like he can materialize a pistol. And the bad part is, if he keeps going like this, the result is obvious. He's just standing there, and Kenneth asks if he's going to give up already. He keeps shooting, saying the kid can't adjust. Can't come up with a plan. Really, he doesn't belong to the Knights. He already said that as soon as they get back, he'll tell the captain that he doesn't belong here. But then, suddenly, he feels something weird. And when he looks back, man, there's a gigantic sword coming down from the sky. Leica says trick shots were never really his thing anyway, so he's going to forget about efficiency. And this mana cost stuff, the guys are screaming. Kenneth tries to get out of the way. Our pro says with just one strike he'll finish everything. The sword hits right in the middle of the group, man, and it starts sweeping through the entire forest. Kenny looked down from the middle of the sky, seeing a volcano he opened, and said that was extremely dangerous. Right then he descends, and Leica is there exhausted, saying rich man can't even lift a finger. But you know if the bastard saw it? Man, he spent way longer shooting, while he killed way more with a single attack. He's going to have to recognize his potential. Kenneth, however, is silent, wondering what that was. From each of the bodies, there was a strange line going toward the ground. At that moment, he shouts, saying he was in the middle of a trap, and tells him to run. The ground starts shaking, and a big, slimy mouth appears beneath the two. Leica glances to the side, startled, swings the sword's power back and forth, and creates a rope for them to hold on to so they don't fall. At that moment, Kenneth explains that this monster uses the monkeys as bait to devour creatures. The problem is that the Proton used too much energy earlier and now can't fight anymore. Wait, but wasn't Kane almost flying? And if this is Dragon Ball Z, it looks like his power ran out, right? Or the tongue came and trapped the two. The Pro is trying to make the damn thing let go. Suddenly, something appears in the sky. Fran, the beautiful one, comes giant-sized, saying that since he opened his mouth that wide, she'll have to handle it. Her spoon grows huge, and she seems to stab right into the middle of the beast's mouth, sending it flying. Oh, she kind of dug underneath the beast. There was what's probably the real owner of the mouth. She approaches and unleashes a series of slashes. The creature is completely sliced. The two fall to the ground, all twisted. She walks over with that tiny skirt of hers, saying they did well. Taking care of the little monkeys, she sensed the presence of a strong demon, and just didn't expect it to show up like that, at least. She's happy the two have become close friends. They, however, right there, obviously aren't feeling that friendship after having the tongue removed. Laika is impressed with what she did, a simple sequence of an attack. Throwing the beast upwards, she solved. This creature that seemed impossible to him, she really was on a different level. What he doesn't understand is why she had her hands clasped like that. They want to know, right, what she thinks she's doing. Friend explains that they might not know, but every demon was originally a human. And after subjugation, she likes to pray. All that happened to those poor things is that they were exposed to dark magic. This is how they become monsters. Don't worry about it. He just stands there saying he understands, while KF says it feels weird. He had never heard of a magic reservoir in this area, big enough to create a creature like that. Not to mention it appeared very close to the capital, which makes even less sense. Fran said it really seemed kind of out of place. That's when, suddenly, Fran senses something strange and tells everyone to run. They're kind of confused about why. And the ground starts shaking. Then a voice says he thought he had sent one of the most impressive creatures he had. Someone steps on the trio's backs. When they turn around, there's a hooded human approaching. Fran looks completely terrified, and the guy says he can't believe she managed to slice his kid like that. Really, humans? That face they were that fools everyone were horrible creatures. Fran is more worried about this guy, saying something about creating. She asks who he is. However, the dude just raises his thumb, and with a downward motion, the three are thrown to the ground. Laika is sure there's no way he can help with this. Fran was way stronger than him. No chance? Kenneth, on the other hand, is all guts and courage, pulling out his big gun, saying that bastard isn't walking away like this. The guy, however, says he's a naughty little kid. Suddenly, red flames start appearing on his arm, and the guy replies that it's all fine. He's just going to rebuild all of them without worries, because they'll become even stronger, just like the one he's making now. Suddenly, that beast she had cut in half starts being pulled toward the guy. Something begins to appear in front of Laika, who is stunned. The remodeled monster now had a brain with a mouth on its belly. Huge eyes. Damn, he got Fran. No, you don't do that. We only have 2 women in this story. No, don't bite, don't. The Proto is watching, my god. Proto, get in there, man. Let's activate the hairy one. Phew, the kid activated it, thank god. Hey, demon, get a scare. She's confused. Kenny is watching. Our boy stands up there, with a long-haired guy staring at him with hatred. Kenny can't believe it. Our guy made the famous power Tamaneo ball, and threw it at him. Damn, man. It opened a crater on the beast. He insults him for doubting while he's all swagged out. But that was it. It killed the beast. The hooded one transformed back, but he's interested in this kid. Now saying he really was incredible. Moving like that in this gravitational field should be impossible. Not to mention he's sure that flame from before wasn't supposed to exist in this world. He pulls the boy, says it's interesting, and asks for forgiveness. Suddenly his pupil opens. He takes a look and sees something red. At that moment, he replies that he understands. The boy made a contract with a god from another place, but to think he offered something like that is crazy. Damn, man. While the guy was in his monologue, the protagonist peers through with an attack in the middle of his chest. Still says the bastard is a big mouth and won't stop talking. The whole creature seems to start disintegrating, and only the clothes fall to the ground. Then, the protagonist also falls face down, and the 2 fools get up around him, wondering if Laika really killed him. Fran seems to think it's kind of impossible. Then, she checks the clothes and sees that what was left was a kind of puppet. Apparently, whoever it was controlling it remotely. The two guys there are trying to wake the protagonist, but he's in that nice little nap. Fran, on the other hand, is scared of this weird puppet that kept creating creatures. What kind of power do you have to, from afar, take down the three of them with such ease? Suddenly, she gets startled and asks if it's the Magic Master. Commander Tempest is then in a village of a mobile game. Look, girl, little girl, open the door and call for Tempeste. And it's Ramiro, man, the guy with the book on his face. He says the day is too beautiful, and he's just an old man wanting to rest a bit. Ah, the guy has long hair, right? Looks like a wizard version of Laika with long hair. He says he found something really good, and his heart is beating fast. Because the girl replies that he's kind of crazy with those dreams of his. He's always been clumsy. He wiggles his finger. She makes some tea, saying he prefers to be lazy anyway. And watching the sky cracking open, he said that from now on. Something fun is going to happen. Meanwhile, the group carries Laika back, with Kennedy telling the bastard to wake up already. That he doesn't want to keep carrying him all the way to the capital. However, the protagonist is more focused on that weird guy and that thing about the person. Saying he offered something like that. Seriously, man? What could he have offered to gain so much power? It must be something kind of, like Naruto, man. He's going to become the big boss. Killing everyone back at the Knight's base. Everyone found out the kid has a contract with a god from another world. That was the underground barracks, and Grift says if that's the case, he's going against the foundation of the Knight's Order. I'm still confused. If I saw Commander Jack, is it a girl or a boy? This artist has a style, man. She has a big arm, but it looks like she has big breasts too. Or something like that, I don't know. And he's commenting that it looks like the boy produced a gigantic divine instrument. Something like that. Kieran says yes, this kid has already proven himself valid in combat. Twice now. Besides, he couldn't just believe what a weird puppet said in front of everyone. The blonde hair, however, says it seems like something involving the Magic Master and the risk was way too big. It says it seems like something involving the Magic Master and the risk was too great. This organization had no room for uncertainties, especially since all they plan are cars. This is Vice Commander Gavanfi. He's giving that stare to Arthur wide frame, but she responds that she wants to hear Fran's opinion. Fran was present at the moment. She replies that when that creature appeared, she and Kenneth couldn't even get up. If Laika hadn't been there, they definitely would have died. However, at the same time, she noticed that he himself might not be able to control that power properly. This Gavin guy says he heard that every time this kid uses his power, he gets completely exhausted and faints. How could they rely on something like that? Or consider that eventually he would gain control over the power? Nah, I'd rather have an uncontrolled guy alive on my team than everyone dead. Arthur is thoughtful and says she understands. It's hard for him to control the power, because it's from another world, and whether he's fit to become a knight or not, that's something they'll have to figure out over time. Everyone is giving that stare, and she warns that, taking all this into account, she wants to know what it takes to convince Gava. He replies that the boy would have to pass the Flame Guard test. That's the minimum to let him join the team. Apparently, it's no small feat, because everyone is shocked, but Arthur already turns around saying it's decided. Then she asks Jack to train the boy hard, especially since they're sending him to hell. So it's best if he's as whole as possible. Meanwhile, Laika is still suffering, remembering the guy he met, a god from another world, and it really is crazy that he offered. Something like that. Laika says that guy is disgusting and suddenly wakes up, telling him to shut up. However, he's in the room there, but Kenny is beside him reading a little book and says he finally woke up. Even with recovery techniques used on him, it took forever. The protagonist wants to know where that dangerous guy is, but Kenny tells him to relax. The immediate danger has passed. He's a bit flushed there and looks like he's about to thank him, while Laika tells him to say what it is. Then he says that he was saved because of Laika, and if it weren't for the boy, they would all have died. So he wants to say, right? The Grari got worried there. He was concerned he wouldn't lift the plate. He's a bit confused. He didn't imagine this guy will be worried about him because he answers, "Of course I am." He's worried because they were the ones who saved him. Don't just think that this bastard really can't lie, because he says it doesn't matter. She opens up, and Laika puts his hand on his face there, a bit embarrassed, saying he's going to have to interrupt, even though he just woke up. A decision had been made about his future. It was decided that he would have to go through the Flame Guard test. Kenneth looks scared, and the protagonist is confused. "Hey, buddy," he replies, "you're crazy. The kid just got here recently. He's a total amateur, and how are you going to send him to a place like that?" The big guy says he's the administrator of this test. Laika is saying in the background that it's okay if he passes this test. He'll be recognized as a member, but Kenneth explains that this isn't the test to become a member, but to become one of the executives. Normally, you can't even think about trying this test until you've been through countless battles and earned numerous recognitions. And sending him, who just joined the team, is learning to use magic, was basically the same as executing him. And the big guy tells the kid to take this test seriously. Normally, a third fail, and another third go insane. Very few people pass it. Besides, many of those who fail also end up dying. So it's best he takes it seriously, unless he wants this to be the end of him. Really, these are the smartest humans I've ever seen, right? The guys have an apocalypse happening, a perfect time to die in war. And they're creating a test that kills soldiers. That's a perfect 10. For everyone involved, Kenneth wants to see the response. And the kid hesitates and says he doesn't understand what the difficulty is with this thing. Besides that, he has no choice, since that is the only place he owns. So, it's obvious that he agrees 5 days later. In front of the test cave, Kieran explains that the test would have 2 parts. The first was to survive in that cave for 3 days. He wants to know what the second part is, and the guy shows a candle. Then he tells him to place the wick on it, and as soon as he obeys, a flame lights up. The guy explains that he had to make sure the torch didn't go out, protecting it for 3 days. Like asks why, and Kieran explains that for 3 days, this flame would attract the monsters nearby, meaning all he has to do is not die. And with that, the dumbest test in humanity begins. Inside, Likinoda was struggling to breathe in that place. Maybe it was the thing Kieran mentioned about Alice being full of magical essence. The northern region already has more mana than usual, and inside the cave the concentration is even higher. And that's why the monsters in these places are extremely ridiculous compared to the rest. At least he's calm, since the mission is simple. Survive and keep the flame lit. A Pokemon appears right in front of him, and the snake tries to attack. He dodges, draws his sword, and cuts it easily. However, at that moment he notices that because he kind of used his own mana, the candle lit up and became insanely strong. This was also a way for him to kind of learn to control the amount of energy he's releasing, right? Since the flame would give him away. He tries to concentrate to lower the fire, and after a while it returns to normal. However, this first flicker right then causes a bunch of creatures to appear in front of him, drooling with hunger. Laika only remembers them saying that either he would become a member or he would die. In this place, monsters are coming from every direction. While the troop watches him through a mirror, Kennedy comments that, just as he imagined, it's impossible. There's nothing to be done. It was too early for the boy they wanted. However, he responds that if the commander made that decision, it means he wouldn't accept it. He didn't know it was something so extreme like that. Kenneth says he understood. But even so, at that moment, his friend interrupts. He says he has a feeling the boy is going to make it. Laika is there, suffering attacks from all sides, wondering, how is he going to survive so many creatures that are getting stronger and stronger? At this pace for 3 days, he would be surrounded. And at that moment, the candle starts to grow much stronger. Oh man, he decides to increase its power to attract absolutely everything in that place. And finish everything all at once. A woman who likes 0. At 100, she already screams, ordering everything to stop, and generates an explosion around her body. That reaches the exit. The beasts are all evaporated. The cave looks like a volcano. While he asks what the idiots think about that, Kenneth is thinking it's madness, apparently. The kid's plan was to finish off the creatures and then rest. The rest, okay, doesn't seem excited, saying that if he manages it, it would be amazing. However, suddenly, he says to wait a second. Something is wrong. That wasn't supposed to be there. And he wonders if it's the work of that damn bastard. The protagonist is there calmly, sitting, saying that at least now, he managed to take out several. He could rest for a while, but that's when a strange laser passes right beside him. Looking back, there was a beast coming, man. A weird one, with 4 legs, 8 arms, and a bunch of swords. The protagonist is kind of confused about what kind of beast that was, while Kieran is sure it was something called Berserate. And that is a creature developed by the Order of Knights. Actually, it's a beast made to kill monsters and wasn't supposed to be there. At that moment, Kieran is calling the barracks, asking if it wasn't his doing. That creature wasn't supposed to be in the test. This thing was only meant to involve normal monsters. The dumb brute of humanity said he was just testing a prototype, and it so happened the situation was quite convenient. He put it in the cave to see if the monster would kill some creatures, and by chance, it was the same one from the test. Kieran said it's obvious he's not going to believe that nonsense. Gavin, however, said it's best he doesn't even think about going to save the kid, especially since he should understand this test has to be tough. Even if he can't handle it, he should just say so. They don't need a kid like that. Man, this kid saved 2 from your team. Since you accept it, then it makes no sense at all. I'm starting to think that crazy guy is humanity's enemy. That's for sure. At that moment, it was the maid in the room, the dream of any man. The damn woman cooks at home and still kills it out on the streets. She's really fierce, damn. The brute wants to know why she's lowering herself, acting like a servant. She said it's a hobby. Haha, I'd call it fetish. She wants to know how much sugar he wants. He said none. And she just replies that he seems kind of happy today. He answers that he doesn't think so. But maybe he's not in a bad mood, especially since in this organization, the fewer problems, the better. I think he's happy. Because he thinks Laika is going to die. He's dodging lasers everywhere. Jumping, making energy balls in his hand, throwing them at the creature which explodes, but the beast remains intact. Laika wonders how his attacks, which were killing all the monsters, aren't working now. And the worst part is the flame is still strong. In other words, soon maybe other creatures would arrive too. He dodges 2 more attacks while the monster keeps striking him. Laika knows he can't keep using so much strength anymore. The fire was draining his energy, and soon other monsters would appear. But what was he going to do? How was he going to deal with this beast? Once again, the monster looks down at him. As he tries to figure out the weakness to handle this creature, he suddenly realizes that the beast seemed to be just an attack. However, the moment he moves his foot an inch, he almost gets hit by a shot. At that moment, he starts to realize that this creature was kind of anticipating his moves. He stops mid-run and decides to change strategy, charging straight at him, signaling that it wants to see how he handles something like this. He dodges 2 lasers, slides under the leg, and tears the monster in half. Man, that was easier than I thought. But apparently, it's not over yet, because as soon as the beast hits the wall, it charges again, shouting for him to die, stabs right in the face, right by the eye, and pulls out the rest that was inside. Then he sees the beast was all made of wire. However, he says it's settled now, while the big guy watches angrily. Fran is clapping, saying he's really impressive. She tells him to put sugar in his coffee, so he throws in a bunch to calm down and takes a big gulp. Then he tells her to leave, saying he prefers to be alone. She says that's fine. So the loser is there, a desolate son, trembling, saying that was just to be sure anyway. Especially since that cave definitely doesn't want anyone to get out alive. Easy, man. Why are you trying so hard? To kill the guy who, in theory, is going to help humanity? Explain it to me. You son of a bitch, it's already night on day 3 of the test. The protagonist is exhausted, worn out, and the old lady is tiny. That also means he's starting to almost reach his limit. He sees monster flesh in front of him and wonders if it really moved. The slight movement makes it clear it's not his imagination, and he sees that thing was approaching. The bad part is that those were leftovers from the creatures he had already killed. And in total, there were many, a little weird critter from the fig tree right in front of him, and he doesn't understand why. Maybe it was the effect of the dense magic in that place. However, this was going to make things way more complicated for him right now. A golden glow starts to fill the cave. It looks like a bell. And he remembers that Big Jaw said he needed to survive. Keep the candle lit and leave the cave when the bell rang. Now, all he has to do is get out, but in front of him, he's surrounded by monsters. He tries to slip out from the side, while noticing that the candle, what was left of it was very little. He decides to hold on, keep pushing, and keep running. The beasts come from behind, until finally, he sees the exit. But he takes a whip strike on his back. Even so, he keeps moving forward. To be honest, it doesn't even seem like it hurt that much, man. He keeps pushing, heading for the exit. However, the beasts are obviously still coming from behind. And man, he falls like an idiot to the ground. But a blue attack passes by, and someone steps in front of him. It's Big Jaw smiling. Telling the boy that time's up, he asks if he won. But before getting an answer, he faints. I wanted to say yes, the boy existed. Along with that, sometime later, he's waking up on a chair there, a bit confused. He asks where he is, and Arthur says, it's the ceremony hall. He wants to know why. And why everyone is gathered around him, because she explains that they're about to start the Guardian Flame passing ritual. They give the order of the Sacred Knights, reveal their vows and their arms, and prove loyalty to the new recruit. Whoa, crazy. And prove loyalty to the new recruit. Oh, crazy. Kiera says he is the captain of the Ninth Division. He has a vow to never bring family into battle. What do you mean, you don't kill family? Or you don't fight alongside your family? I don't get it, Franco. Beautiful thing. The captain of the Second Division says her vow is to give up food for the rest of her life. Wait, what do you eat to keep all that health? My girl, your long torso looks like a cat, man. Look at the size of that chest, the length of those legs. What, right? If only F could see this. The captain of the Second says his vow is to never tell a lie. Griff reveals to you that his vow is to dedicate his right arm to God. My goodness. Jack is crazy, dude. His vow is to stay a virgin for the rest of his life. This guy has to be the strongest around. He's a god. And what about Gavin's? Man, his vow is to never sleep. Crazy. And what about his shield's vow? Actually, it's to never forgive anyone who betrays the order. The guy has two vows. Naughty son of a gun. Not to mention, how? Do you manage not to sleep at the start? These guys are confusing me. But then, Arthur raises her sword up and says her vow is to renounce gender or not. Huh. But what kind of vow is that? Doesn't sound all that impressive. Renounce gender in what sense? Stop being a man? Stop being a woman? Neither man nor woman. What is it? She nailed it. And she tells recruit Ryuga to reveal his arms and make a vow. That was the sign of trust he had to pass on to everyone. And man, at that moment, the little guy remembers, right? He doesn't even know his own vow. But suddenly, he activates his aura. Rising up, all the long-haired guys are shocked. Trembling, the aura dissipates. He says his name is Laika, and that's his vow. He has no idea, doesn't know the origin of this power, and no clue how he got it. He only remembers the monster said it was terrifying. That he gave up on something like that, though. He swore he would earn everyone's trust and become the most powerful knight. He doesn't want to see anyone else get hurt. So, before that happens, he wants to be able to save this world. Now that I think about it, Arthur's a square, right? He looked like a girl. Why did he renounce his gender? Or did his mother renounce it? Why did he become so square-faced? And she's the one saying that for the flame of life, he would need to find strength, and as proof of trust, that he has what it takes to become a knight. They accept him and welcome him into the order of the Sacred Knights. Everyone places their hand on their chest and looks up at the sky to see if it's really blue. I'm still kind of in disbelief. With everyone's vows, many don't make much sense. Arthur was leaving when Gavin stopped him and said he couldn't believe they accepted someone who can't even say their own vow to the order. She, however, turns around and asks if he wasn't the one who proposed that test, to say whether he was capable or not of being part of it. Besides, not knowing the vow he made and admitting it was still a risk to his life. That was more than enough proof. Gavin replies that this very irregularity was the problem, and if the boy became a danger to the existence of the knights, she answers that he worries too much. That flame of his, the closer he gets to death, the stronger it becomes. And it will definitely be a necessary force for the knights. While he's there making a fuss, our boy is already being grabbed by Fran. The next chapter starts on a train with happy families. The trip was going to take 2 hours. Inside was the rare reserved section for the knights. Our boy even got a little cape. All happy and proud, saying that the pathetic days are over. No more suffering bullying. His life is going to get easy now. This boy has no idea what he's getting into. We thought he forgot the world was about to end, right? Then, a woman in the hallway offers some food. He takes it but says he has no money. But she replies that it's fine. That was what they gave for free to the knights. He's already all happy, saying life is really good now. He never imagined eating good food for free, the Virgin Jack. But she tells him not to think this is free. Man, they pay with something that's not money. She beats her chest and says they're paying with their lives. The protagonist is staring at her like in a movie. Damn, does my life really cost an apple and a sandwich? Jack, however, says everyone counts on them to be protected, and now that he joined the order, man, he can't give up. He has to go all out. Kenneth, however, wants to know the reason they're being sent west. Jack says that from what he heard, monster activity in the region has been increasing non-stop recently, and they need reinforcements. The protagonist notices that the whole place was full of night personnel, so they really are sending a lot of people. The protagonist, however, wants to know if everyone is a beginner. That's what Kenneth is doing there. Kenneth says it has nothing to do with him being a beginner. It was Fran who ordered him to follow the boy and keep an eye on the disasters he causes. At that moment, Laika is kind of standing there, a bit confused. So he calls Jack and says something's confusing him. He made a vow to stay a virgin for his whole life. Did that really work for anything? The guy's a bit confused, but our protagonist says he couldn't stop thinking about it. He found it weird. Jack explains that's not how a vow works if he gives up something like that. God wouldn't give the same answer. The vow of virginity is different, based on the people who love him. Oh, you think it haughty? So, even if it's a billion boys, you gave up half the world? Huh, you rascal. Oh, or actually it's even worse. He said what matters is how precious the offering is to you. In other words, he's not some pervert, that's for sure. He just had a notice, for example. That Fran's soul gave up food, obviously, to gain the power she has. It's not just that food is essential. It must mean something deeper. The protagonist is now thoughtful about Arthur. Huh, man? The guy gave up his gender. How did that even work? And everyone seems to have gone kind of silent there. Oh man. Jack reveals that Arthur is a real princess. I knew it. That wide frame doesn't fool anyone, man. And Kenneth says the captain was chosen from a royal family. It seems the captain before her was the half-brother. And after he died, she took the position. But she was a cute little princess who had been spoiled her whole life. So this vow, for her, who depended on her looks, her status as a princess, and live her whole life like that was very meaningful. Haha, but that vow was weak for her. She stayed pretty strong. Liga is there thinking he understands. Now, it's explained how she got such incredible power. Another cool vow like that, this vow. But, I don't know. I thought it was so amazing. I'm waiting for the guys who, I don't know, lose an ear, lose their hearing, lose their eyes, lose their mouth, man. These guys lose some crazy stuff, So far, everyone's only lost a little thing here and there, except Jack. Right? No. Jack's his pain. That's pure suffering. The two are there, laughing and arguing. Jack is too, when the door opens and a guy with a hat appears. Apparently, he's the engineer thanking all the knights for their protection, for the order, and for being with him today. He says his name is Dauga. Meanwhile, the woman there looks a bit confused and glances back, wanting to know who he is. Right then, a weirdo under the hat swings his arm to the side. Man, in a second, both are grabbed by the chest. Jack jumps, dodging an attack coming from the ground, escaping the chairs. Damn, but several of the knights had already been killed, man. But they're just cannon fodder, useless. Laika gets scared, asking what happened, and sees everyone stuck on the spikes. Another one immediately starts transforming, man. Those who don't die yet turn into weird, bluish creatures. Kenneth tells him to stay away. But oh my god, the bastard is a Lego doll. No way, constantly unequipping that little arm, he shouts desperately. Meanwhile, Jack is scared, wondering if everyone was turning into demons. Douglas Curve says he hit the mark exactly, and introduces himself as one of the people serving Lord Tempest and the Great Mage. And obviously, those who oppose his path need to be personally sent to death. Right then, Kenneth realizes it was that same power of that creature to transform dead creatures and things into other things. Indeed, this guy must be connected to those mages. And the problem now, man, is that Laika is there, shattered with a piece of his arm missing. One of the transformed jumps to attack him from behind. But then Kenneth pulls out a pistol and gives him a manual shot to the head. Immediately, he calls for Jack, who activates his healing on the protector. My God, creating the fairies cry. Dude, it's the eternal virgin who has the power of the little lowly. Man, she goes to the ground, grabs the little arm, and says there's nothing. She can't heal. She sticks to the boy, throws the golden glow. And with that, he's recovered. Theo says he's now free from the pain. Laika is really impressed. He regained control and looked like he was never hurt. However, something catches attention. That Dauga in front was clapping his hands. Headless, saying that for mere humans. They really possess magnificent abilities. It's a shame that, even after being refined for so long, they will die like any other member of the Order. The guy's had reforms, and he says it's a tragedy, but it's the end for everyone. There's a monster attacking everywhere. The team stares it down. Jack throws a punch, Kenny swings his bar, and our boy does nothing, just dodging. And the problem is that Jack realizes that guy was way too fast. Also, everyone who had transformed seemed to be strengthened. The Dauga in the back apologizes and tells them to be careful. If they don't stop these creatures, all the civilians on the rest of the train will die. Oh my god, Laika is about to do this level of stupidity, slapping the guy's hand and saying he's a knight and should wake up to reality. Obviously, while he's yelling, a knife stabs right in the middle of the creature's head. And Jack warns that a human who became a creature can never go back to normal. The Order of Knights exists to protect the living. And he should have learned that back in the Holy Fire Order. That's why he has to be prepared to sacrifice all his comrades. If he's not even willing to do that, he should get out of here now. The rookie is there scared of the obvious, while Kenneth tells him to relax. That he'll handle this here while they protect the civilians. In the corner, there's a girl crying, and then Lycus sees her pulling the little girl and running toward the door. In the other room, he arrives and warns everyone that there were demons back there. They needed to run. The people start evacuating down the corridor in panic. However, there's a mother there who's a baby factory. Right, man, the girl has 3 kids. One in the back and surely another in the stomach. And right at that moment, the door explodes. She gets startled, and one of the creatures appears. The family, instead of running away, stands there waiting for someone to save them. Lucky for them. How about the little hero? Unlucky for them. How about the little hero who's also a weakling? Or not this time. The son kicked him, pulled out the huge, over-the-top greatsword again, signaling that he won't let anyone get hurt. And he landed a cut, man. Apparently he shared the abandoned train with the beasts in the back. And jumped from there to follow the group. Haga says the kid's really not bad. The detached train continues calmly, while Liga says now they don't have to worry about civilians. The guy comments that it's strange. As far as he investigated, there shouldn't be anyone with official power here besides the commanders. The damn commando shuts up, saying he's going to kill him. What's that? The guy was confused, right? Let him have his little speech. He apologizes, saying he hoped this journey would be amazing, and tried to prepare something special, but it seems his plan was insufficient. This guy looks like a villain straight out of Dragon Ball Z, man. Just like our dear one with the big hair. The little hero says he's a bastard, while Jack asks him to calm down and watch this. They had to see what this guy was planning to do with all those corpses, especially since advancing carelessly now could mean death for everyone. Everyone that wants to kill this guy. But they have to act carefully. Dauga says he's getting scared. If he hadn't used his head at the right moment, he would have died. Unfortunately, he's going to have to turn his old comrades into something interesting. Right then, Jack advances once more, dodging a tentacle, cutting others. He's going in with 2 more, while Knife shoots at him from afar. Or he pops up from another side, useless as always. His arm and leg are trapped, but also as always. Just activate the tree, it's solved. Dauga says a frontal attack like that won't work. Jack, however, is already face to face, saying they'll have to figure that out. He slashes him, but the guy turns into an amoeba and slips out the door. Running away, Jack tries to chase after him. But when he reaches the next cabin, it's empty. He wonders if the guy escaped, but he's sure. There's no way he got away so easily. He's hiding somewhere around there. At the entrance of one of the cabins, you could see a trail of blood, and he decides the guy was probably around there. All right, let's go. But then he sees the real train conductor unconscious. He grabs the guy. He asks if he's okay, but the guy isn't. Saying nothing, Jack tries to use a healing spell from his fairy. But then, oh my god. The guy stabbed his arm and changed from a pained expression to a creepy grin, like a crazy joker. At that moment, Jack slaps him in the face, breaking his neck. But the twisted dude keeps laughing, saying it's funny how easy it is to fool a knight when he's in pain. And the guy starts twisting, turning into a bunch of weird heads, saying it's funny how the Knights of the Order have this habit of trying to save everyone. Back to Dauga. He says he learned that from his big brother and the guy on the ground. Another Dauga appears. Now he has this demon on his shoulder. Jack says he's a bastard and says he's going to kill him. But he gets stabbed again in the chest, and the creature says this guy is pretty dumb. He should be thrown out the window. The skinny little brother, the sweet river. Jack is still kind of confused about what happened, my god. It's explained that they had already thrown the engineer's body away. A long time ago, he was just disguising himself. At that moment, Kennedy runs in, calls out to Jack, sees that he's beaten up, and glares at the bastards. They tell the kid it's Jack's fault for being such an idiot. Honestly, it's funny that an official knight would die in such an easy way like this. However, the smirks on both their faces vanish when a purple light passes through the arm. Man, this thing is butter. Both start to writhe in agony. The little one appears with the whole time activated, saying this time it's the rookie who's going to settle the score. Kenneth tries to help Jack to swerve, but the wound was too deep. He calls her Neve. Damn, dude. The guy has a power that activates without his awareness. That's impressive. Huh? But she explains that when Jack isn't awake, her power takes much longer. Dauga starts reconstructing his arm, and meanwhile, Dauga says there are some pretty arrogant humans. Indeed, having two executive knights as opponents would be interesting. They stare each other down. The ceiling starts to explode, and the sweet one says that, unfortunately, maybe they should settle this outside. That way, both could fight with everything they've got. Leica says he'll have to deal with this guy, because the rest of the hostages might be at risk. Kenneth says it's fine. He'll keep an eye on Jack. And at that moment, the Silver One wants to know what they're looking for, because Dauga says he's just there to send the Incredible Knights on their death journey. That's because they're forbidden from going west. Leica wants to know what's in that place, but the guy answers that he doesn't need to know, especially since he's going to die right there. The train enters the tunnel, and, obviously, it's dark. Up ahead, he senses something coming. It was a weird bat. He noticed that, at least, they didn't seem strong. They started cutting down the bad ones. The number was much greater than he expected, not to mention that, for some reason, he had the feeling that someone was controlling them. At that moment, one came from behind, when suddenly, a mace hit Kenneth dead on. Damn, I thought you were going to end up like an idiot there. Looking at Jack's body, Leica wanted to say something, but his friend said the obvious, right, man? No way I want to beat this alone. They'll have to work together, otherwise, everyone's going to die. The GA changed. It appeared once again, and said that, unfortunately, this is where their journey ends. He pointed his palm to the ground. A wave of monsters rose from the ground toward the protagonist. He, however, stood there, calm as ever, with a little smile on his face, saying that, unfortunately, it wouldn't be that easy. Damn, the protagonist grabbed Kenneth, and, judging by his expression, threw him toward the attack. The two guys were surprised, and he was torn in half. At that moment, they wanted to know how he knew that. Leica replied that knights have to trust their comrades absolutely. He was sure Kenneth lied when he said he could leave, and that he would protect Jack. He even said he was counting on the boy. In other words, right? He doesn't lie, our guy. The little protagonist was sure he would stay there protecting. Now, he warns that they're screwed, because his comrade doesn't tell lies, and he charged toward Olga, slapping him in the face and sending him flying toward the wall. He asked, "How does it feel to be killed by an amateur knight?" Olga was calling out Tempest's name, but apparently, he slammed his body against the wall. While the chaos passed, damn, only the leftovers remained, looking like a big blob on the ground, and the protagonist said he might not have been able to protect Jack, but he guaranteed that bastard wouldn't leave. They're alive, the body began to disintegrate, and the little protagonist reverted the transformation, but damn. At that moment, he notices up ahead another strange clown holding an axe. Immediately, he calls out to Kenneth and says there's someone on the tracks. He takes a look and sees that it was actually a girl, with what looks more like a huge hammer and a muscular build. Yeah, he's the commander of the 6th Division, folks. For those who know, it was Moscow Mommy. She lands a solid hit right in the middle of the track, summoning a smoke barrier there. Actually, it was ice. She raises a barrier and freezes everything. It was the rest of her division's knights arriving, and she immediately enters the cabin. She storms in, saying she's going to handle this right now. She grabs Jack, slaps him on the side of the face, and orders him to relay what happened. He starts waking up, feeling a familiar sensation. Then he comes face to face with her, demanding explanations. Man, he calls her Big Sis. Or Your Highness, I'm kind of confused here, you know? There were 2 translations, and both were staring at each other with that Big Sis thing going on, already outside. They see her talking to Jack and look kind of disbelieving. Wait a minute, are they calling that musclehead? There's no way he's a man. Man, this author is playing with fire. Hello, now I don't know. He's staring at the 2 of them, saying that apparently they were the ones who dealt with those creatures. Besides that, it seems that this Dauga guy really was a demon from a so-called Tempest. The 2 shake their heads, kind of agreeing. Then she orders everyone to return to the barracks and report the annihilation. They urgently needed reinforcements. Also, they had to find the rest of the train, right? Which had the civilians, and who knows where it ended up. Then Bridget turns around and tells them to come with her. She has an idea of where the source might be. It was time to settle this. Leica asks if this also involves that puppet he found at one time, and if by chance. This guy is famous enough for her to already recognize him. Conniff explains that he's not an expert, but it seems to be the legend of a wizard from a long time ago. The person who was supposedly the first to open a wide hole in the skies and summon the Demon King. He is the demonic sorcerer known as Commander Tempest. He is already on the sand with a friendly boat, with her saying that, considering the information from the stories, he was most likely the Demon Tempest. and he must be there in the demon celestial palace. Already. She asks if that isn't just a fairy tale, and Kenneth said no, man. They really exist, that Abergite. He explains that back when the Divine Knights managed to stop the Demon King, parts of him were cut from his body. Each of these parts became a new monster. And these monsters carried high intelligence, and, obviously, such monsters caused countless disasters. One of them controlled the weather, and could make countless lightning strikes fall at the same time. One had flames so powerful they could melt cities, and another caused floods without any concern. Furthermore, the Earth One could split continents in half with a flap of its wings. The Divine Knights of that era had no chance of defeating them, and that's why temples were built at the poles to surround these creatures. The problem is that in the tower where the celestial demons reside, the amount of miasma spreading is absurd. A good example is this land they are on now, which used to be fertile green soil. But the water demons sealed in the tower sucked all the nutrients from the soil and turned it into a desert. And she heard that they made contact with a man who creates demons. It seems even the people in the barracks were already worried that one of the ancient elders had been resurrected, or that someone was working for Tempest. That one of the creatures, pronounced his name. It's safe to assume they're not lying, especially considering Tempest is the one who brought the first disaster. For this world, the worst possible scenario for humanity would be him restarting the same disaster as before. Leica, hearing all this, is wondering if they are really going after such a powerful guy, and Bridget just says that soon they will reach the underground time that should be in this region. Suddenly, the sand fish appear, and then they fall into absolute darkness. Damn, girl, the red moon is already coming. The graffiti flashback here, get out of the way, Porta. Do you feel like you've seen this before? I've seen it too. Man, for him it was nostalgic. In his head there was a strange voice, saying something complex to understand, when suddenly something emerges beneath the little boat, throwing them all toward the temple. The protocol gets stuck on the ceiling like an idiot. Suddenly, a firework explodes, and someone says they're happy to meet again, saying the last time they saw each other was through a puppet. Leica is confused, wanting to know what this guy's talking about. And then he remembers that face that spoke to him. Surely. This must be the so-called demon sorcerer Tempest. Before the guy does anything, screw that game. We're already swinging the hammer to hit him, but it seems they dodge without much concern and say that these Divine Knights haven't changed at all since ancient times. Still extremely barbaric and simple. Bridget asks if he is the Tempest, and warns that he shouldn't be in this region of the country. So it's better for him to get out now. Tempest. However, he says he unfortunately refuses. He has already conducted countless experiments, and now the time has come to make what he always dreamed of a reality. The moon starts shaking behind the castle, and suddenly it begins to rain in the desert. Everyone thinks this is impossible, while Tempest says yes, exactly what they think. He had already resurrected a celestial water demon, Lord Vevel. Everyone's scared there with the little droplets, and I'm just waiting for that so-called god to show up. Whoa, dude, that's a little lowly. With a teddy bear in hand, you already know it's overpowered when they make such a messed up design. And she's there saying she was dying of sleep, while Leica wonders if that's a celestial demon right then and there. Tempest steps forward, welcomes her, and apologizes for waking her up. He knows it's been hundreds of years, but he just wants to ask them to finish it. The descendants of the Divine Knights who sealed him get interrupted with a smack in the face. Everyone's kind of confused there, and DeBill tells him to stop trying to give her any kind of orders. She was nice and comfy in her little nap, so why did he have to wake her? The guy's a bit confused while someone up above says that wasn't what they expected, Abergite. On the other hand, they tell everyone not to let their guard down. She was feeling an absurd amount of demonic miasma. If that creature was really free, humanity would be finished once and for all. Suddenly, though, the baby seems to notice something and flies toward Leica, dude, in a second. She's right in front of the protagonist and says she's a Cairo, and it's been a long time since they last saw each other. Leica is clueless, and she says she thought he was up north. Why is he in her territory? Hey, Leica. He tries to explain he has no idea what she's talking about because the baby human big brother stopped being so distant. Really, his technique of resurrecting by taking over a human body works well. Prada is there, getting more and more scared. Apparently, everything's being revealed, and that's when Tempest from above says it's all clear now. That's why he felt that strong connection from another world with this boy. Apparently, there's more to his body. It's not just a simple contract. Leica still doesn't understand when suddenly an attack hits the pillar nearby, and he has to get out. Peppy says it's a coincidence. That she found her brother here right after being forcibly awakened. Since they're all cozy together, how about they play a little like old times? She lunges toward him midair as he's falling. However, our boy is heading straight into Bridget's arms. At that moment, man, she launches an attack that the poor guy didn't even feel. The kid just melted the silver. She asks if he's okay, and, in memory, Jack activates his healing to put the arm back together again. Smooth Philo summoned, arm reconstructed. Hammer strike on the hand, and it sinks deep into the VBO, but obviously it wasn't going to be that easy. Her hammer just shattered. And the weakling said she didn't call them to play, but rather the poor boy Kenny. Fifi grabbed his big pistols there, but the bullets aren't doing anything. And the weakling is losing patience, saying they're already being a pain. Suddenly, the water sister starts expanding sideways, forming giant bubbles that create big-headed creatures there, looking like floating moons. From afar, the storm watches and says it's marvelous. The power of a celestial demon was so raw it made divine knights seem like nothing. Someone snacking over there. And says the master seems to be in a great mood because he replies that seeing a celestial demon moving freely has always been one of his dreams. And now, standing face to face, he can't hold back his emotions. However, what surprises him even more is that the first celestial demon was awakened inside a human. At that moment, he says maybe it's time for them to return to the northern time before things get complicated. But suddenly, something shines in the sky, man. A giant sword falls. She's furious. Wide shot shows it arriving, man. The storm immediately recognizes trouble is coming. And Arthur asks, since they want to cause so much trouble for her subordinates, they must be ready for what she's going to do. She's there in her ego, with her little hand on her wide hip. Meanwhile, Pest has that really weird look staring at her. Down below, she sees Bridget struggling to face the tree of life. And at the same moment, Kieran appears behind her, and she immediately asks if he can hold out for 3 minutes. He wants to know against whom, and she says it has to be against the celestial demon. After that, she was going to help him deal with it. Tempest is watching all this when she calls him and apologizes, since, unfortunately, he is that demonic summoner people have been talking about. She can forgive him if he promises right now not to cause any more trouble. But obviously, right? He laughs and winks, saying that, unfortunately, he can't make that promise. The bastard says that, and then bails, the guy left with a Dragon Ball-like aura floating around. Arthur, however, wasn't about to let him get away like that. He activates a star explosion at full speed. While those two are in that fight, Kieran falls behind Leica and asks if he's understanding what's going on there. All they needed to do was hold that celestial demon for 3 minutes. Until the commander returned. The protagonist looks scared, and Kieran just tells him to focus quickly because the creatures were coming. The first beasts head their way. Kieran just swipes his blade to the side, while Leica is already taking a cut in the back. At the same time, Jack activates a continuous recovery fairy barrier. Man, this is like an RPG here, dude. Hillary casts the healing spell. Our guy is trying to dodge the moon-headed creatures there, while Bridget rips through the middle. But the problem is that the water not only caused damage, but they quickly regenerated. What the hell, from one panel to the next. Leica has already transformed, activated his power to surround the fire beasts. However, even so, the creatures kept attacking, passing through his flames. Finally, Knife's thymus bullets seem to have some effect. The protagonist thanks the guy for what he says, telling him to stop using his power so much. At this rate, he'll pass out soon. Not to mention that the flame power was useless without using water control. He was just wasting energy for nothing. The silver one notices, right? The absolute obvious, as Kieran starts activating the Thunder Spear. He stabs it into the ground, making it show all the power it has. At the same time, the lightning rises. Bridget comes with the hammer blow of the Winter of Death to freeze everything without hesitation. She hits the ground, and with that, the baby is inside the water, flying bored and saying, "These larvae really are annoying." She stretches out her hand and says that's enough of this. Suddenly, all her mana starts to gather and moves toward her body. She turns bluish inside the water, while Kieran notices she's absorbing all the aura and seems to be expanding her power. Now the real fight was about to begin. Luca transformed, but he's only remembering what she said about them being siblings. He can't understand. He's human. He's a divine knight. He's brother to this thing. That's all weird. Laughing at him, he tells this bastard to stop staring, like they knew each other, when suddenly everyone feels something strange. And the protagonist seems to be suffering from something incomprehensible. With his hand on his head, It looks like there's a voice inside his mind, and he's asking what that's doing there. And man, look, Sukuna is calling, saying if the boy is him, finishing VBU should be easy. Kieran is telling them to get ready, while she, from above the moon, descends from the castle and heads toward poor Kieran. Fifi is getting weaker soon. He's firing shots, but through the reflection on the water there. She notices. He suddenly appears and slaps her in the face. At least it was humble. Damn, just a little slap. He could have even blown her head off, believe me. But he advances to deliver that milk hammer blow once again. Hits dead center and causes absolutely nothing. The poor thing is surprised. While the baby, the son, stretches out her hand and pushes her back. Jack calls for the princess, who replies that she's fine and tells him to focus. On the healing, poor guy, geez. He doesn't say a word, kid. He said he understood. Meanwhile, the protagonist is still in Chavez's fainting spell, man. Trying to understand what's happening and why it felt like his head was about to explode. At any moment, a power was coming that he couldn't control. Then at that moment, he drank. Noticed something and approached dude. He got right up on him, gave him a stare. She smiles and puts her hand on her chest, opening a crater in the middle of the boy's belly. Man, he comes flying. Jack tries to activate the healing there, but clearly it's not going to be enough. The girl slaps his back. Hey, it worked, man. Word is that Jack's healing is ridiculously overpowered. Dude, it rebuilt the crater in the boy's chest in a second. Yet Vivi humiliated the kid, gave him that superior glare, and said he's gotten pretty weak lately. At that moment, a voice in Laika's head says his turn has come. It's best to stop ignoring it and give it everything he has. The protagonist wants to know who it is and what's going on. The voice seems to say it's not a celestial demon. Meanwhile, Tempest is fleeing, seeing Arthur right behind her. She comments that he's pretty persistent. Maybe he should give up a little? She, however, replies that he seems to want to cause a lot of trouble, so she's going to return the favor. Suddenly, she pulls out her sword and, man, slashes so hard the boy's legs fall apart. Immediately, he says she's a really evil person. How can she cut off both his legs like that without showing any emotion? She answers that it's obvious, especially since she knows if he escapes, he'll keep reviving those celestial demons. Tempest realizes this damn woman wants to kill him no matter what. But that's what he sees, and he wonders if she isn't worried about the comrades she left behind. The longer she stayed here, the greater the chance she'd return to find everyone dead. He's going to keep running as fast as possible while she desperately chases after him. Abandoning all the friends, his path is easy. While she struggles with this choice, Arthur, however, replies that she'll kill him and still come back to save the comrades. Man, the guy created that Yu-Gi-Oh card of the Swords of Revealing Light on top of the dude. And man, the big-headed one apparently got rolled. But the guy is smiling, saying it's really sad to be in pieces. Being cut like this, all sliced up, it's going to take a little while to recover. He congratulates her for getting what she wanted, but wishes her luck in recovering the friends. Arthur gives her a look, turns around, and heads back toward the group. She was sure now there was no more time, and she needed to help the others. The moment she said it would take 3 minutes to reach Tempest. And so far, on the way back, it was a total of 2 minutes and 50 seconds. But what she saw upon returning was all the comrades dead on the ground, and a celestial demon asking,